My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, I'm Kara Tanenbaum. Today's leadership quote comes from Jim Rohn. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast. Hey everybody, it's episode 74.
Hey friends, today's sponsor is Life Squire. They were founded by a former executive assistant looking to create a healthier relationship between current assistants and their clients. They found their niche in placing assistants in positions where you and your executive can thrive. If you're an executive assistant, they would love to help. You can visit their website at lifesquire.com/leaderassistant or call them at 405-889-4430 to find out how they can help you. lifesquire.com/leaderassistant. Thanks so much for sponsoring LifeSquire. Your sponsorship helps me do more episodes and stay motivated to keep going strong. And thank you for what you do for the executive assistant community. All right, let's jump into today's interview. Hey, Leader Assistants. Thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Kara Tanenbaum. Kara, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Where are you in the world right now?
Right now, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Awesome. So let's start and talk about your very first job out of school.
My very first job was when I was 16 years old, and it was working for a retail store called Wicks and Sticks in the mall. And I was a sales associate, and there were 2 owners. It was a husband and wife, and they were so close to retirement that they were never there. So there was a full-time person there during the day who was like the assistant manager. And then in the evenings when I worked around school hours, all of the staff were 16 and 17-year-olds like myself. So we kind of ran the place, for better, for worse. But something that I definitely learned then that I still use today, some of the skills, is that because the owners were barely there, we had to kind of learn the ins and outs of the job. Everything from inventory to, of course, handling the money and closing out at night and, ordering more merchandise and, above all, customer service. So I really enjoyed it. It was such a fun, laid back, atmosphere, being with your friends and getting paid for it. But we also had to hustle. And so one thing that I took away from that, looking back all of those years ago, is that if you know the ins and outs of where the company that you're working for, you're just so much more effective to your executive, knowing what each department does and kind of just knowing the whole workflow of start to finish and what reports do what and who to go to in different departments. And usually it's people coming to us for the answers as EAs. So I found that those skills have really stuck with me all of these years.
That's awesome. So kind of tell us a kind of quick, short version of the retail store to EA career progression.
So many jobs in between, but when I first became an EA, it was in 2003, and the position just came about without any previous experience in the admin field. I was an event and meeting planner in the position before that, so the organizational skills and prioritizing all of those spinning plates definitely came in handy. And that helped me qualify for the position where I had the soft skills over the admin skills per se. I was a an assistant to the president and the publisher of commercial real estate magazines. And so it was the very first position where I did not have a successor. So, we've all been there, right? Where we're kind of just thrown into the water and had to train ourselves and rely on being resourceful. So, we encounter that over and over again. I feel like no 2 days are alike. We never know what will be thrown at us. But that's how I got my very first EA role, was with that commercial real estate magazine publisher.
So where are you at today?
I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're still an EA.
Still an EA. I've been an EA for going on 17 years. And so now I'm here in Charlotte, and I work for a facilities maintenance company. And my executive, the CEO of the company, is it's women owned, and I have finally, over the years, gained the confidence and step into that strategic partner role. And so I love working with her. She's a true entrepreneur and a risk taker, and I love just kind of riding in the background, riding her coattails, so to speak. So, still doing it after all these years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about maybe one of the biggest mistakes you've made as an assistant.
The dreaded mistakes of not doing a double check, sending an email and spelling the recipient's name with 2 L's instead of 1, or forgetting to invite someone to a meeting in a calendar invite. I actually just made one recently. I booked an appointment online with a doctor, but then I didn't add it to my exec's calendar. So the missed appointment made a huge impact because it cost her for a no-show session, and I didn't look professional to the doctor. So the lesson on this is to take the time to do a double check, and sometimes a triple check. Because if you're like me, you ruminate about these little slip-ups. And so the extra few minutes are totally worth it. I mean, I know we're all very busy, but not so busy that we can't be mindful of the double check and following through step by step before hitting the send button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely double, triple, quadruple check.
Yeah. It's hard when we have so much on our plate, but I have found the hard way that if we're not meticulous, it just has much more of an impact in the long run. So it's worth it.
What about managing your executive's email inbox? Do you have a tip on kind of the process that you use or have used in the past?
Yeah. And this actually was a work in process, I will say. I have done a lot of research, a lot of trial and error on managing different inboxes. And so my biggest tip is minimal subfolders and relying on that robust function of the search bar, because nothing is ever really deleted, right? I mean, it's still there. And so it's overwhelming to have a lot of subfolders. And what I have done that has worked well for both my for my executive and myself is I just have 2 subfolders. I have an @read and an @delegate, and I triage daily. If the action is 2 minutes or less, she'll take care of it. If it's reference, I put it in the @read. Because there's not an action, she reads it, she puts it in the @read. Anything that I need to delegate, I'll send it into the delegate folder so that I can then either she sends it on to someone, depending on if there's instructions involved or something I can take off her plate. I go ahead and just do that. And I think that also creating filters to automatically tag and file those messages can save a lot of time in the organization process. But in addition, like, the systems will never work if you don't have time to actually work them. So if you can batch time on your exec's calendar for daily email management, even on your own calendar, that definitely helps too. Once it's streamlined, it's all of 20 to 30 minutes that the exec has to really do if you're fully into that exec's inbox, like I am. Triage daily is very important.
Yeah, those are great tips.
Yeah.
I use most of those myself, so
yeah, oh, good.
I can verify.
I'm so glad that I might be on the right track then. If you're doing it too, then thank goodness we're in it together.
So let's talk a little bit about, you've kind of got a side hustle going, and I'm a big fan of side hustles. I think that
yes.
Everyone should have multiple streams of income, and I think that's one of the best ways to kind of invest in your future.
Yes.
And so you specifically have a couple of virtual assistant clients, and you are also helping assistants who want to become virtual assistants. Tell us a little bit about how you got into doing virtual assistant work, and then how you help assistants kind of make that transition from working in the office as an EA to a remote VA.
Sure. So, so definitely a fan of the side hustle for all those reasons that you mentioned. And about 5 years ago, I decided to start a freelancing side hustle called podcast production services to supplement my EA income. And I did this for a few years, helped podcasters with behind the scenes admin and marketing tasks like their email lists and product launches, writing their show notes, booking their guests, interviews, that sort of thing. And I loved my podcasting clients and helping them to grow. But honestly, it became difficult to juggle 4 clients and be a full-time EA. And at the time, I wasn't ready financially or emotionally to take the leap and going completely on my own yet. So at the time, I made the decision to finish out my current podcasting projects and concentrated solely on my EA role. And then since then, I've been able to manage a couple of clients as opposed to the workload that I had before. And so I still EA full-time, but I also have a couple of VA clients in digital marketing that I work, very part-time for each month. And one of the things that was kind of a eureka moment for me was I'm constantly asked online in Facebook groups and on LinkedIn how I got started doing as an online entrepreneur. And I learned very quickly that my fellow EAs like me, we don't have to sit behind a desk and work in the constraints of a 9-to-5 and not earn what we should be earning. And so I was like, wait a minute, let me step back a bit, because when I first explored the world as a virtual assistant, I had to figure out all the things, how to brand myself and market, land clients, and determine my pricing and set up all the systems for my business. And I was so deep in the trenches that I wish I'd had this roadmap. And that was the moment for me when I was like, you know what, I have something here. I don't want other EAs to reinvent the wheel. And so that's where EA to VA was born, because I can share everything I learned as a step-by-step process for any EA who has an entrepreneurial spirit and wants that seamless roadmap, to learn the ropes of getting of starting a business and seeing it grow, getting all those systems in place.
So that's awesome. So then if I'm an EA and I come to you and I say, I want to become a virtual assistant, what's the first thing you say or encourage or challenge them in?
I would say start with the touchy-feely things of your mindset and do some mindset work, figure out your why. And I know that isn't, it's not such an action step as like, set up your website and figure out a name for your company. And those are all great and important in terms of branding yourself. But it is we have so many similar skills as an EA or a VA, right? We can transfer those skills. We are badass. I mean, we can do all of that, those for the client. But there's also a mindset shift that goes from being an employee in a company to being a solopreneur. And Jeremy, I know you can relate because you juggled those two sides as well. So I would say first figure out your why, research a bit to see if this is an industry you want to delve into. And then once you're like, yeah, I can do this, get clear on your ideal client and the industry that you want to work in. There's a lot of things that we can do as EAs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to do them. So really think, what are the things that our sweet spots? What do we love to do? People tell us all the time, they come to us for those particular things, what drives and fuels us, and then align that with the pain points of your ideal client. And so once you get that going, you've got a clear roadmap to move forward. And I teach all of that, how to find that ideal client and industry you want to work in.
That's great. Yeah, that's really good advice as far as, what do people keep asking you to help with? And that's likely something that you can help others with. And
our zone of genius is different for everybody. And and also what we want to do. I mean, we can do a lot of things, but what really fuels us? What are things that we really just own? That's what you want to take on as your services as a virtual assistant.
So it kind of answered my next question, but let's talk about it a little bit deeper. Should virtual assistants specialize, or should we kind of be Jack or Jane of all trades?
I would highly, highly suggest that you specialize, that you narrow your niche, because if you try to serve everybody, you end up serving no one. That's a famous saying. I don't know. I can't quote who it is from, but so yes. So I would say definitely specialize, whether it's the industry. So real estate is an example of an industry. Podcasters are an industry. Health and wellness is an industry. Also, nailing down the ideal client that you want to work for. So when I had podcast production services, I helped podcasters. It didn't matter what industry they were in, but if you had a podcast, I narrowed down who I wanted to work for, and it turned out that they all were entrepreneurs who had small businesses, but that was just really, after I narrowed down the pain points of a podcaster, it turned out that that's who my clients were. But that's how you get clients, is getting nitty gritty into your niche, niching down to who you want to serve. So
once you get to that point where you're like, these are the people I want to serve, do you have any marketing tips or tips for finding clients?
Yeah. So once you have nailed down your niche, I'm a firm believer in relationship building and developing connections. Marketing now, it's about them. It's not about us. And so I have found clients and teach my students that if you hop into Facebook groups who are could possibly use your services, you can offer value for them. Be curious and ask questions about their business and their pain points so that you can answer the questions. Someone says, how do I do this? And you can answer, you do X, Y, and Z. You can talk about how you help, but definitely not in a salesy way, because you're not in those groups to sell your services. You're there to build connections and offer free value so that your ideal clients grow to like and know you and trust you. And believe me, building relationships is a very tremendous way to increase your client base right off the bat. And referrals, just getting to know people and offering that value to them. When it comes time for them to need your services as a virtual assistant, they're going to know who you are because that you've already helped them with that free value of just being there as a support system for them.
Love it. So can you share a couple of tips for VAs who manage, and this could be for EAs as well, who manage multiple clients or multiple executives?
Yes. So I will be honest in saying I have never managed more than one executive at a time. I've always had only one CEO as my executive, and sometimes they're like 2 or 3 people, the workload and the demands. But as a virtual assistant, I have had multiple clients, and so a couple of things. One thing is knowing their style, because everyone has a different way of planning their day and managing their tasks. And if you find yourself working with more than couple, 2 or more clients, it's important to customize the methods of communication for each individual. Some like face-to-face interactions. Others are preferred, just totally go with it and talk to me once a week and give me an email update, or send me something in our shared Google Doc, and that's sufficient. But everybody varies. So I would kind of off the bat know their style and ask them, what method of communication do they prefer? The other is learning to break down projects. And this has helped me even in my EA role is, working for more than one person will inevitably mean that schedules and projects and deadlines will overlap. And so rather than attempting to tackle a mountain of work all at once, I've broken down multiple large projects into smaller manageable tasks, batching those similar tasks. And it's really hiked my productivity. It's not only becomes more efficient, but it really allows both me and my clients to track progress, and we can make adjustments as needed. And you really, when you batch those tasks, you find out where the priorities are very clearly. So you can get to those priority tasks right away, and then, go through the to-do list, the rest of your to-do list accordingly.
So I want to get a little bit honest here and have you talk a little bit about the cons of being a VA. I know a lot of people market this whole idea of, I'm sitting on a beach drinking a margarita and working and, life's perfect. So can you kind of give us a reality check on the role of a VA and kind of set us back to reality?
To reality. Wait, let me ask you, have you been sitting on a beach with
I'm not
margaritas?
A beach guy. I've been sitting on a mountaintop,
nice.
With a bagpipe guy playing, that's how I work.
That's how you do it. That's how you roll. You and your thoughts. That's all you need. Reality check. So there's the good and the bad, and sometimes the ugly. Again, I go back to that mindset because it took me a while, and I still, I'm in the EA full time still. So I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy being a servant leader and being that right-hand woman. But at the end of the day, when I go home and I'm working on my business, it is a completely different thing as far as, okay, now you're the boss. And with that comes a lot of great awesomeness, but then there is reality check. So a couple of things. You don't get vacation and sick leave, and paid vacation and sick leave. The benefits all are on you, and that is a good thing. And that's also, health insurance is out of pocket. You don't get paid PTO. time. So if you're sick and you can't work, that could impact your productivity and deadlines for your client. So it is all about balancing that. And I think, there is a lot of flexibility with being a solopreneur or virtual assistant. They're all, all the same thing, being your own boss. But with that, you have to have the discipline. You can work in your pajamas, but if you're sitting at home and you're working in your home office and you decide that there's something on Netflix that you'd rather watch, that's okay. That's cool. As long as you have the discipline and the focus that you're able to meet those deadlines. Fortunately, though, I have found that as an EA, we know how to meet deadlines. We know how to try to stay focused. We know about productivity. So that's why to me, it's just kind of like this ideal, symbiotic relationship. Like we can transfer those skills as an EA very well to being a solopreneur.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. So you mentioned servant leader. What makes an assistant a leader?
Every day, I think we practice leadership. So what I feel like as leader is being able to go from sitting in your executive's office and listening to he or she vent, knowing it's not about you, it's about something with the company, and knowing that you can go from that, or even making strategic decisions with your executive, to then going to your desk and dealing with tiny little details or, the drama that ensues in working in an office environment, that back and forth, being able to adapt in that environment, to me, exudes leader. You're there for your executive, who is the top of the hill, and you're also there for the team members who do look to you as an extension of their executive. But knowing that you don't have to be top of the chain to be a leader, that we're all leaders in the company. We all have things that we can give and contribute to the success of the company and to our that happy human factor of working, for the company. And so I think that we hold a very important role as that middle ground, so to speak, where, we have something to offer in all different aspects of the company.
Great. Yeah. Totally agree. Thank you so much, Kara. I think you're
so welcome.
Excited about what you're doing for EAs who want to become a VA. Excited about what you're doing for just EAs in general and your passion for the role. And just thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be on the show and share your tips and tricks.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your podcast. I enjoy it as a listener, and I appreciate you very much and everything that you contribute to the EA industry. Our community is fierce. And thank you for being one of those influencers.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks again to Kara for a great interview. Feel free to reach out to her on LinkedIn, and I will post her LinkedIn profile link in the show notes at leaderassistant.com/74. leaderassistant.com/74. All right, we will talk to you next time.
GoBulls.com